Hey, how are you? I'm going to ask you a really weird question today. Do you like what kind of hard drink do you like? Do you like Scotch? You're a millennial, aren't you?
Yeah.
And
I like rum. I like wine. That's not technically hard, but hardcore fine fan.
yeah, so it's so strange that if you're a wine fan, I can understand that as total millennial country maybe and beer maybe, but and vodka strangely. But I'm wondering about Scotch, and Scotch is going to make an entrance into India, isn't it? Or a reinvigorated entrance into India. Apparently, because of the UK-India deal and the
Yeah.
rest of it. But here's a challenge that we are seeing, right? And I want you to set up the context of the challenge. But essentially, it's people like you who are preferring wine, beer, everything else under the sun except for hard drinks. And
Yeah.
just trying to understand, but can a hard drink actually win over, like Scotch, maybe win over the affection of younger generations, not just millennials, but Gen Z. I mean, Gen Z is even worse. So why don't you set it up?
Yeah, just to give a bit of a context with the current statistics, right? So the demand for spirits across the alcohol categories, they fell by around 4% from the last year.
Yeah,
And the whiskey sales, they grew by only 1.5%. Brandy and vodka completely flatlined. Brandy grew by around 1%
yeah,
at max,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And under the UK free trade agreements, we might see some uptick because the import duties have been reduced by 50% from 150 to 75%. But this brings us to a bigger question.
Yeah.
Since now let us look at the environment. All right, where was the hard liquor mostly consumed? It was in the corporate parties, or it was in the family occasions, or it was on the festivals, or when people got together. Now after COVID, we've seen a drastic change in the way we socialize. There is more remote work happening. There are lesser office parties happening, and more the Gen Zs and the millennials, they're preferring to stay alone. I would rather spend the evening with myself with a glass of wine in my hand rather than just go out with a bunch of people I don't care about and have hard liquor. Right. And I think this is causing the bigger problem, which is that the hard liquor, especially as a category, is becoming culturally irrelevant to the
Hmm.
next consumers.
Yeah. No, just to add to that, I think if I see people prefer doing their drinking at home, no matter what the generation is. And yes, you're right, it happened with COVID, but I'm seeing a slightly different change as well in the culture, and which is around actually understanding that whatever alcohol delivers to your brain, maybe there might be some other systems that can deliver it. And I'm not just talking of recreational drugs, which are acceptable in the US and not in India, and certainly not in the UK. But I think people are getting into the healthier lifestyle, right? So
Yeah.
people are getting into non-alcoholic beer, or people are getting into meditation and yoga, and so all of these trends are also becoming culturally very relevant. Now, in this case, where does hard liquor stand? So, do you have any other inputs for us before we try and crack this problem?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is in, like I said, the cultural relevancy, right? The cultural rituals that used to happen. If you look at the advertisements back then of Blue Label or the Imperial Blue kind of stuff, it used to be parties among friends who used to get together. It was about masculinity. It was about
Yeah,
contained ego, right? And now, if you look at the alcohol ads, for example, the Corona beer or the Jarlsberg, they go for the party angle. So, and Absolute has gone for the LGBTQ community angle, right? So, the entire story narrative of alcohol as a category in itself is evolving from a alone time persona, or from the man who made it persona, to it is a party drink or it is a refreshment drink.
yeah, yeah. No, let me just add a little more color to the Scotch over here, and kind of look at this, right? So, if I look at what is really happening when it comes to drinking, is that I am changing my relationship with my drink, right?
Hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
changing my relationship with my drink, and I can see some parallels over here, right? And I think the UK would be probably very happy because domestic consumption is kind of going down, and you will have a lot of people who love their scotches and all amongst the older generation. And let's face it, India is still a big market for older generations as
Yeah.
far as scotch is concerned. So I think the UK and the scotch industry will do well for the next, let's say, 10 to 15 years before old people like me have been told, please stop drinking scotch. But on the other hand, if I look at it, uh, there is a bigger trend, as you mentioned, about Gen Zers and millennials, and this is where we need to focus our attention and see if there have been any parallel plays happening in relevant industries. The first one is smoking, right? So if I look at smoking and the way in which Marlboro and every other cigarette manufacturer came into markets such as Thailand, India, and Southeast Asia, was when domestic market demand went down because smoking was uncool in the Western markets. That's when they started flooding the Southeast Asian market. So that's one. The second is, if I look at Pepsi, Coke, and the rest of it, they have started facing a huge existential challenge in terms of cola drinking, right? So I suspect that alcohol is going through this, and I don't think it is evolution; it is destruction. Because if I look at what is really happening, and I just sorry for this rant, but I just want to bring out an even older play. So when horses, right, when horses were the main mode of transportation, the demand for horses was big. Now compare that with alcohol. Then what happened was the motor car came in, which was a different value system, different technology, different everything, right? Different delivery system. Now, if I look at the way in which horses changed their playbook, was that they became hobbies, okay, or they became on the racetrack. So
Yeah.
the market size shrunk, but there were niches and pockets that remained the same. Now it's quite
Right.
possible that it is going to be the same in the alcohol industry, and they probably need to wake up and smell the scotch.
That's a very interesting angle that you brought in, and actually, I was feeling the same way, right? I mean, you enjoy the drink as your evening me time, or you enjoy the drink as a hobby, or you would like a glass of champagne, or you would like a glass of say a scotch when you go out for an art gallery, or
Yeah.
you go for a play or something, right? So it becomes like an aspirational thing, or something that you just it's something that is not your brain work but more of your hard work.
Hmm.
And that is where, if you connect the alcohol or these liquor, be it premium brands or mid premium segments, or be it your whiskeys and scotch, or be it wines, if you relate them somewhere to a recreational activity, an art gallery opening, or say a tattoo workshop parlor or something like that, something that you just do as a hobby, you can completely change the USP of alcohol and the way you look at alcohol, rather than as a habitual or an addiction creating drug, to a recreational activity.
You see, the problem with that solution, that story solution, is that those occasions are lesser, and there are already entrants who are entrenched into that space. Like wine drinking is connected to art galleries, but Scotch drinking isn't. However, there can be cigars and Scotch, right?
Mm,
So there's these cigars and Scotch. But you said something really interesting, which was about celebration, right? Now the fact is that okay, maybe for everybody, Saturday night or Friday night is a time for celebration, or the weekend is a celebration, but that kind of loses its meaning. You have the ability to create specific and special meaning around certain occasions, like maybe a promotion or a raise, or some special meetups and stuff like that. The problem with all of these playbooks, right, is that they're limited, and so
mm,
you're kind of painting yourself in a corner. But that is quite likely that that is what is going to happen with the alcohol industry. So this is how, let's say, I would look at it just as a potential solution. I'm not saying that I have a lot of solutions here, but I would start off with celebrations and male celebrations, especially for Scotch, okay? Because I don't know about women, because women, maybe there might be a slightly different storybook that we might need to connect to. But if I look at male celebration, then I would make a playbook around it for small celebratory moments which they are sharing, like cigars and smoke and stuff like that, and then slightly expand the storyline, saying that you can celebrate small wins every day or something like that. So then
Yeah.
you can expand the category, but it's a 2 or 3 step process. For
Yeah.
women, it's different, because then, so if a woman is into showcasing a power dynamic, she's a winner, she's doing all of this, then she can signal her difference, saying that, what, I have Scotch because I don't care. That sort of thing. So again, culturally, we have to be relevant. The moment you try to communicate that Scotch is fun and Scotch is really hip and
Yeah.
it can go for Gen Z and millennial, that is never going to work.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. These are inherently a, say, a Harvey Specter drink,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
So earlier, this was a westernized concept
Yes.
of you showing a whiskey or scotch, not a celebration, but somebody just sipping scotch as they're working in an office.
Yeah.
So now, when this shift is happening in India,
Yeah.
right, where success or the deserved respect, the deserved success is happening, the culture is moving towards the earned respect in India,
Yeah.
that every day has to be a milestone, right? So how do you mark that milestone? If
Yeah.
you bring whiskey into that, or scotch into that, or any hard liquor into that, you immediately associate that liquor with a victory celebration. And who doesn't like victory?
It's a tough one, though. It's a tough one because we are standing on a mountain of information about how alcohol in general is a problem, and how hard drinks are an issue, and you want to communicate to yourself, not to everybody else, as to how you're making healthy lifestyle choices. So it's going
Yeah.
to be a bit of a challenge, right? And it's a nuanced story. I don't think you can have a broad stroke story
Yeah.
about this, and it's quite possible that this story can never be communicated through a campaign, right? So I just wanted to bring a bit of a thing out over here. You can't communicate a story like this like how Johnny Walker used to, or whatever, anymore, I think, because if I look at what Johnny Walker did, iconic campaigns and stuff like that, but they just are superficial. They're not touching the culture at all. So then what do you need to do? You probably need to develop a sort of a strong community somewhere, or maybe you need to start those conversations within existing communities in order for you to actually make a dent. And you need to say, hello, I'm this, and I'm different because I'm this. Now,
Yeah.
it's quite likely that that will take time. This playbook takes time, but I think it probably is going to work stronger rather than just a normal splashy campaign that you can have all over the place.
No, correct, correct. And the kind of influencers you use
Mm.
for spreading your word, it used to be celebrities. So rather than using a Shah Rukh Khan or a Hrithik Roshan for this, please don't.
Yeah.
You should. I mean, look at the kind of startup owners.
Mm.
Say if a Kunal Shah is doing a campaign, or a Nitin Kamath is doing a campaign for, or is shown drinking whiskey in his office
Yeah.
after making an amazing trade throughout the day, after earning billions in a trade, just having alone time, relaxing with the music in the background and just drinking scotch. Now, imagine that kind of an association happening, and that kind of community that you're creating uh, with him as an influencer. I think that trickling down and associating whiskey with the kind of proposition that we want to create, that will take it from, the declining angle to a part of our lives, a regular part of our lives. This is the kind of influences that you should go for, or these are the channels that you should go for.
Yeah, no, I think that there is a counter story playbook that can happen with Gen Zers and millennials, saying and use it with, say the what I call the Fight Club playbook. So what's the Fight Club playbook? It is like what happens in what happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club, or nothing has happened in Fight Club. So you can literally start it as a community like that, and build it up as if like it's an underground movement of sorts, and connect it to maybe a Reddit kind of platform, and you
Yeah.
might suddenly start succeeding. Of course, these are many thoughts, and I think that there is some food for thought over here, and also maybe a drink for your thoughts, Janavi. Wonderful. I think we have made people extremely high already, and it is just a Thursday, folks. The weekend is coming. We don't care whether you have wine or rum, as Janavi prefers, or scotch, or just plain old water for me. Hmm. On that happy note, I hope you enjoy this. What we are trying to do is we are trying to identify a trend, right, Janavi? And then
Yeah,
what we do is identify a company
yeah,
or a
industry.
persona, an industry. Sometimes we extricate that and apply it to other industries. But mainly, what we try to do is figure out what can be the story that saves your life, or saves your product,
Your
or saves
company.
or your company. On that happy note, wonderful. Nice to see you.